1, 2, 3, 4. Pedagogy a go-go. Pedagogy go-go-go. Hello, and welcome to Pedagogy a Go-Go, a podcast about how we engage with learning and why. This is Season 6, Episode 6, And a Learner, and we are your hosts, Kelly Allen and Gina Turner. Hello, Kelly.
And hello, Gina. It's so good to see you again.
Why, it's a delight to see you as well.
It's like we're getting close to the end of the semester.
We really are. Yep.
And
smell the barn.
Yeah, man. I smell the barn.
Yeah, you've never heard that?
Oh no, please.
Like
share.
horses will speed up because they know they're almost home, so it's because they smell the barn.
Oh,
quote,
I have heard that before. Okay.
I said another idiom today, and everyone looked at me like, "What?" Which is chalk and cheese. Have you ever heard that expression?
No, it sounds disgusting.
Well, you don't eat it.
Okay, thank goodness.
But it's you say something is chalk and cheese when it looks kind of superficially similar, but it's wildly different. So it's like that's like chalk and cheese, right? Isn't that a cool expression?
I love it, and I'm going to abuse the hell out of it.
Yay!
That is awesome. Yay! Abuse.
It's all right to abuse an idiom.
Yes.
All right, we do not condone abuse in any form on this podcast.
No, we don't. But sometimes,
especially when we're welcoming a psychologist.
I know that's
podcast.
what I was just. Oh Lord, here we go again. But yes. Assistant Professor of Psychology Megan Nocek will be joining us today.
We're very excited.
Yes, we are very excited. Yes. I gotta stop, especially. Okay. But yes, and this is going to be perhaps the last episode for season 6, unless we can cook something up with gatekeeper stuff. But I get ahead of myself. We'll talk more about that during the outro. But yes, today is Megan's day. I'm so looking forward to chatting with her. Yes,
she is an esteemed colleague, and I'm sure we will have a very fun conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you had just one word to describe yourself as a teacher, what would it be? I know. I will say
it's the end of the semester, man.
It's been a couple
it's getting
weeks.
there.
Yeah. But it is the end of the semester. Thank goodness.
Yeah, I heard you two talking about like you're saying that you're like, hey guys, we got 5 weeks left, and here's our things. Boom, boom, boom. Like, how's that going?
It's going, I like to do the check-in because I feel like after spring break is over, the train is just chugging down the tracks and it's not stopping, right? And so I feel like students don't necessarily realize how many new demands there are after spring break, in a number of their classes. And I mean, in my classes, I always kind of structure like my big assignments at the end of the semester. So I spread them out across the semester, but I know not a lot of instructors or not all instructors do that. So it's sort of like, I just try to give them that little anchor of like, hey, this is where we are, and you should probably figure out where you are in your other classes too. So.
Yeah, spring break is weird. Like it's a necessary break. I know that, but I also feel that it's also kind of got like this Bermuda Triangle effect on some students. Like, so you're talking about like the train chugging along, and I feel like sometimes students don't like get back on the train
right
after spring break, and it's just it sucks because like I feel like I spend like the first like week or two saying, hey, school started again, like where are you, let's get this going, and it's totally not on them, but I don't know. It's hard.
Well, it feels almost antiquated a little bit if you think about it, because our students, I feel like whenever I have an in-person class, as long as I've taught here, and I ask, oh, what are you doing for spring break? They're like, the same thing. Yeah, exactly. Working, catching up on my schoolwork, which I guess is good because it gives you that little space to catch up. But I'm not sure how useful, honestly. It's useful for our faculty members because the
Yeah.
faculty will run off and do things
Right.
and take a break. But I wonder how relevant spring break really is for our, community college students and all that entails.
I feel like we need to cut this part from the section because we're going to get in big trouble. Like we're jeopardizing spring break. No, but like I agree. Like with our students. So here at a community college, since so many of them are local, they use this as an opportunity to get more hours in at work. To make some more money or kind of get caught up on things.
Yeah.
But I know that when I was an undergrad, there was always at least like 2 professors that were like, "Hey, so you got spring break coming up, so like you're going to have some extra time on your hands. So like we're going to add a couple extra like 100 pages." And I'm like,
Oof.
Yeah.
"Dude, that's terrible." And I realized that like if I ever become a faculty member, I'm never doing that to my students.
Yeah.
But the lesson that I have not learned is that I have not been able to keep from doing it to myself. So I'll be like, yeah, just turn in your big assignment right before spring break starts.
Yeah.
So I'll spend the whole break reading your stuff.
Right.
And I got to get away from that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have totally fallen into that trap as well. I feel like we're getting into all the nitty gritty already and we haven't even asked you. So, Megan, what do you teach?
Oh, yeah.
First, thanks for
Questions.
having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yay.
So I teach psychology, and I have been teaching psychology here at Northampton Community College since 2010. So this year is my 15th anniversary here.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. So I did start off my teaching career here, though I can get to this in a bit, but I don't think I was born to be a teacher necessarily. I think it was something that, kind of became a pathway in my life. I started fresh out of grad school. I mean, didn't have a lick of teaching experience at all.
Yeah.
And, came in here and, just sort of ran with it. And then I spent a little bit of time teaching as an adjunct at L-Tri-C, also taught psychology there. I went full time. I guess it's been about 4 years now that I've been full time.
Wow.
So,
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
yeah.
Time does fly.
So,
Well, I want to get more into that idea of straight from grad school in a classroom. Hi, I'm teaching a class. But can you talk a little bit more about the specific classes that you teach most of the time?
Sure. Yeah. So it's changed over the years. When I first started teaching as an adjunct, I primarily taught introduction to psychology, but I also taught abnormal psychology. And I did that for many years. And that really coincided with the work that I did outside of the college, which was behavioral health rehabilitative services. So I had a lot of, first person experience in that realm. And then over time, it sort of evolved. So I think Gina, you may have even been part of that group that approached me. It's probably been close to 7 or 8 years ago now, where I got recruited to teach research methods.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a new challenge, and that's one thing about me. I think that I've always done, and I've always been pulled toward our challenges, and that's what really motivated me to seek out the teaching position with no experience, right? And I just got lucky. But the challenge of teaching research methods, because I think that subject for a lot of people hear research and you're like, oh my gosh, like this is heavy. But that's really become a big, part of the work that I do, and I love teaching it.
Yeah.
So I do intro to psychology, I do research methods, I do developmental psychology and health psychology, which you also pulled me in on, and I love teaching that too.
Yeah.
So
That's great.
those are my primary ones.
I also love that you mentioned that you were doing that other work, that behavioral health work and rehabilitation work, because I was just at an event yesterday and I ran into a couple of alumna from NCC from here, and they were both raving about how cool it was that the people that they took classes from, they were both in architecture. They both work for an architecture firm now. How the people that taught them worked in architecture. And I always say that's one of the most special things about a community college is that the faculty you get are people that have worked in their area or continue to work in their area because, a lot of our classes are taught by adjuncts. So this is sort of something we were talking about with our last guest too, with Vivi.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that called like a professor of practice?
I think at the university level, right? They'll.
Yeah. So one of our past guests from quite a few years ago, Dr. Karen Beck-Pooley, she's a professor of practice. And I just read this great article about her in the Brown and White about this small cities initiative that she's doing and like all the work that she's doing with students. But yeah, like I can see like, with Megan, and the work that you do, just like how valuable it is where like you have that real world experience that you could share that with your students. That's cool.
And I was able to use stories, stories where I de-identified my clients and the families I worked with, but really just to help the students just sort of get an idea of what they're learning about in a textbook looks like out in the real world in the context of a home or in the context of a school or something like that. And so and I had to be careful in how I presented it because that work is so challenging. And finding a way to be candid about that work, but then also encouraging them to take on that challenge. And helping them to identify, the reward in that difficult work.
Yeah. Do you feel like you're able to use examples from your work in research methods to kind of make it a little more accessible to students? I know that's different than teaching, the abnormal or psychopathology class, but because I do try to do that to a certain extent, but also try to get them to think about research in the real world. So we should probably have a side conversation about this and find out what we're doing these days in terms of making it accessible.
Well, what is research in the real world?
Well,
like who gets to do that?
These are very good questions, right?
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love asking good questions.
Anybody can do research, right? But
right.
depending on what's going to happen with that research, then there's other, important safeguards that need to be put in place, right? Like there needs to be an IRB, an institutional review board that needs to do the vetting of, the methodology of the study. And, you need to pre-register your hypothesis so that you're not like kind of cheating by getting your data and then,
retroactively explaining why the data looks like it does.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm certainly like being totally mindful that I do not derail this entire recording here with what I'm about to say. But so like some of the things that Gina and I have been talking about with past guests, and I think this maybe really started about 2 episodes ago, was about like kind of how there's this kind of gatekeeper element to our disciplines. So like in my field in writing, so like what is like standard writing? Is it something that has been kind of established by like these wealthy landowning white guys like hundreds of years ago, and then that's the kind of model that we need to kind of follow throughout academia? Or are we doing something that is kind of more democratic, more inclusive? Like, so what does writing from our communities look like? And in what ways can we like value and validate that type of work within the academic world? So like when I'm asking about like the research methods, so like I'm sure that there's like a lot of folks living in our community who like have not taken research methods or perhaps have not attended a college course, but they are doing research. They have figured that out. So in what ways are those, so we were talking earlier about like, so Megan, like you're bringing your experiences from the field into the classroom, but then also I'm wondering like in what ways are students able to bring their experiences of like research and what have you into the class?
It raises a great question, Kelly, because I would say that for our class, what we are doing is we're teaching very much this is the box of, let's unpack this box of the tools that we use in psychology to collect data and then use math to see if, these different topics or different concepts are related to each other in some way.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, one thing I do is I talk about the qualitative type of research where I was looking at how people use language or talking about, I guess this is what I had in my head when I was thinking, what things do we bring to connect, this scary research word with the real world is anything can be a research question. Anything you observe in the world, any question you raise is a hypothesis. Any prediction you make is a hypothesis about things that are happening in the world. And you're making me think I want to kind of set the box aside a little bit more. But I don't know. What do you think about?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of things. So the one thing I think is that, in being a research gatekeeper, Kelly, as you has said.
I'm not calling you a gatekeeper.
No, but
like
you said, we are in some senses gatekeepers for, our disciplines. And so I think the things that I really want students to understand about research are that it's really important, but it's also imperfect. And so we spend a lot of time talking about weird samples, right? Those samples that don't very well represent our diverse population. And how so much of the research that we have right now is not only based on weird samples, but has also been conducted by people who, are not very diverse, who do not represent minority groups, and their own biases are involved in the interpretation of that data. We spend a lot of time talking about the bell curve and other. I actually have an assignment called Bad Research Studies, where we look at these different studies that have been conducted in the past, like the Willowbrook hepatitis study and Alice Goffman's On the Run study and MK Ultra, and the students go through and they look at what happened in these studies, what was the purpose of these studies. How are these studies unethical? And if we wanted to study this same topic today, how could we do it?
That's great.
And then I think it also helps them to understand how, just because we want to know about something doesn't mean that we can subject people to harm in order to know that stuff, right? Sometimes we just have to rely on things that unfortunately naturally happen in the real world, and we use that information to collect data. Yeah. So I think I do my best to link it to real world scenarios in that way.
That's great. And you make that really important point too about WEIRD. WEIRD is actually an acronym for the vast majority of psychological research that is in our textbooks. And it stands for, you're going to have to help me out, Western, educated, industrialized,
rich, and democratic
societies.
What?
So those have been the traditional subjects or participants in the research that we read about really up until people really started to think about the importance of culture related to a lot of psychological theories and constructs. So yeah, that's great.
Before we get too far, you said MK Ultra, and as soon as you did that, I was like, is that like a hip hop artist, like MF Doom or something, or is it like a new thing from Michelob? What's MK Ultra?
MK Ultra was a study about mind control and how the government actually used hallucinogenics to do these different experiments on mind control. Yeah.
Is the movie Men Who Did Something with Goats? Does this ring a bell?
Oh,
yeah. It's a
gosh.
George Clooney movie.
Yeah. And isn't Brad Pitt in it or
I think
something?
So.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
I think I know what you're
You know what I'm
talking
talking about?
about. Yes.
Men Who Stare at Goats.
Oh.
I think that's what it was called.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
I remember seeing previews for that, but I don't get to watch many movies at home.
Yeah.
So it's sad about that.
Well,
but anyways.
move it up your queue.
But no, that's fascinating. So another thing that you said that kind of look at me just taking stuff over. I'm so sorry. But another thing that you said that has got me kind of thinking over here, and I'm listening while I'm thinking, but is like you'd mentioned that like you went to college and you didn't think that like that you're going to be a teacher. I think that you said I wasn't born to be a teacher. Thanks, Doc.
Kelly was talking to Jeff. He was not talking to Megan or myself. When he
So
said,
for
"Thanks,
all
Doc."
of our listeners at home, Jeff will randomly give us a time check. And so today's dog for thank you, dog, is the one and only Jeff. But anyway, so.
But sometimes it's me too.
Oh, yeah, totally. To the stranger at the coffee line. You're not Megan. But anywho, oh, man, what an episode. Okay, so I always find that fascinating when people like are going to school to be like one thing, and it's like, so being an educator just was not even in their mind, and then they like just go and do it, and then in your case, like you're really good at it. So like I'm just really curious, like how the hell does that happen? Because like so for me, like I knew that I wanted to be an educator in some form or fashion since I was in high school. I think it was like the summers off thing, whatever. But like, I always thought that like, teaching that's where it's at for me. Cause I just love, as you can tell, I love talking about big ideas. So I knew that was for me. And I was always paying attention to it, whether I realized it or not, to the craft of teaching and learning. So in your case, and we've come across this a couple of times where it's like, you know what, I'm going to teach today. And then like,
Hey, I like this.
yeah, it's like you like it and you're good at it. So like, I'm curious, like where are you drawing, like what inspirations are you drawing on for like what kind of teacher that you want to be? Like, was there a teacher that you had in the past that you found was really inspirational, or was there a moment as a student that you found to be inspirational?
I think that my answer to that is sort of like twofold. So I guess I'll start with like why I came into psychology and education, and then I'll talk a little bit more about my experience as a younger student and how that shaped my approach as a teacher. So I started off in community college going to school for criminal justice because I thought I was going to be a state police officer, and that was my goal. And I really loved learning about the criminal justice system. I had wonderful professors there. But as I got, just started learning more about the topic, I was just getting this sense that like this system is not built for rehabilitation. It just feels like, okay, you've committed a crime, you've been incarcerated, and now it's kind of the end of the road. Like, yeah, you get released, but this is always, on your record. This is always sort of hanging over your head. And I've always been kind of like, I'm sure as a child, I was like that kid who asked why 1,000 times, and so I've always kind of been curious about the why, right? Like, why do people commit crimes? Why do we respond to, criminals the way that we do? Why do people go back to jail after being in jail if it's supposed to be rehabilitative, So I found that when I was transferring, psychology just seemed to be a bit of a better fit. And while my initial interest was in really understanding the whys within the criminal justice system, I didn't end up going into like forensic psychology or go to John Jay or anything like that, because I think it opened up a whole new door of just general whys, right? Understanding just more about people in general. And I feel like having that understanding has changed my life in so many important ways. And I think that that's a piece that I really want to give to students, is just like the curiosity and how the knowing makes so much of a difference, like searching for the truth, in a time where truth can be really hard to find, right? And so that's where those critical thinking skills come into play. But the other part of my answer was really like, what influences my sort of approach as a teacher? And I'd have to say that I don't think I was a good student as a child. I was smart. I always did well. I didn't really have to study, but I was bored. And so I misbehaved and I got into trouble a lot in elementary,
Amen.
middle,
Yes.
even in high school. Like I was in AP English, but I was a troublemaker, you know? And I think that what that's taught me as an adult who has a child who is a smart troublemaker in school is that there is no real profile of the good student, right? Or the bad student. Like you might see someone getting great grades. Doesn't mean that, you know, everything else is balanced in their life. You might see a student struggling. It doesn't mean that it's their fault that they're struggling and they're not trying hard enough. So I think having that experience myself and now going through that experience with my child has helped me to understand that, you know, every student is an individual and has individual, you know, circumstances. And yeah.
That background is so interesting because it seems like we get a lot of people who end up at the community college as well who were like, yeah, I wasn't really a school person. And then suddenly something kind of grabbed them, made them passionate about something, right? I mean, I put myself in that category too, as I've talked about. But I kind of want to, I want to kind of combine two questions together, which is, yeah, no, watch me do it. Is if you're thinking about yourself in the classroom, what is the word that you would use to describe yourself? But you're also really kind of illustrating how you are seeing the students as very different people. So how do you change as you interact with different students or as you get to know them?
Yeah.
Does that word change or does that word morph in some way?
Yeah. I would say that as a teacher, you know, if I had to like add something into my role, it would also be and a learner, because I feel like I'm always learning. The more that the more that I'm involved in my discipline and the more that I interact with students, I'm always learning from them. And so I think that my adaptations, yes, are sometimes relationship based from semester to semester with students, but I also try to do things a little bit more broadly and sort of learn as I go over time and accumulate this individual knowledge and kind of put it all together and be like, okay, I think this is something that's going to probably work well for everybody. Because, I mean, we have so many students. This semester, I have 150 students. And so between online and in person, I mean, so it's really hard to tailor, you know, individually to these students. You know, and I have some courses like health psychology where I have a lot of different majors. You know, most of my courses that I teach in person, like research methods, are all psych students. Right. So, you know, they all have similar goals and it's easy to sort of teach to them as a blanket group. But when I teach health psychology, I have a lot of health science majors. I have people from other disciplines who are taking it as an elective, and I have psychology majors. So I really love that because it challenges me to make it applicable to different disciplines and also give the students an opportunity to kind of highlight their knowledge in their in their program, because there's some things that I don't have the answers to. I mean, like I tell them this is health psychology. It's about the psychological aspects of health and wellness. I don't know everything about red blood cells and all of these different disorders and things like that. So those of you who, you know, have more medical backgrounds, please feel free to expand on that and share that information.
Yeah.
You know, so I like being able to highlight, you know, their expertise and let them, you know, sort of help out in teaching the class sometimes.
That's great. That's great. I mean, I always brag about psychology is that everything is psychology, right? And so a class like health psychology, I mean, who does that not relate to?
Right.
Every single one of us, and every single one of us is going to deal with some major health issue, whether it's our own, whether it's a close family member, whether it's, you know, someone in our life. So that's one reason I absolutely love teaching that class too.
Yeah.
And to get that different background of people in it is really fun. Yeah.
We just took a walk down to the East 40 Tuesday, because it was so beautiful out. And
nice.
like I had plans to teach and I was like, you know what, let's do something different. And so we were focusing on chronic health disorders and quality of life. And so I came up with some discussion prompts for them to focus on as we walked. And so every like 5 or 6 minutes, I would read them a different prompt to have them reflect on the experience. Like, how is being outside impacting your mood right now? And then, you know, a couple minutes later, one might have been pay attention to your breathing and your energy and, your just, again, your general mood, and what might this experience be like if you had limitations from a chronic health disorder or something. And then we came back today and they processed it while we were there. And then we came back today and we talked about it. But it was so funny and kind of like cute and heartwarming, because I had a student who, got closer to me as we were walking. We were doing the hike because we walked through the trails and whatnot. And he's like, I was giving them a little bit of information about like birds and, plants and stuff like that. And he's like, how do you know all this stuff? I said, I don't know, probably just, he's like, did you grow up in the woods? I said, yeah, but I mean, it's probably a combination of that and like being interested in things. He's like, I said, but I don't know everything. He said, well, you know enough that this feels like a completely different class. So I was like, oh, that's really cool. Yeah. So I was glad to like be able to, share some of my hobbies and interests at the same time as teaching class.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I love that.
Well, yeah, and that's cool how your student is recognizing that trait in you. So I'm assuming that like they realize, okay, wait a minute, this is not something that you learned in your psychology classes when you were a student, but this is valuable knowledge that you are bringing to this class, and it is having this positive change. And I'm hoping that students can then see that in themselves, that like their experiences outside of the classroom can also have a similar kind of influence or impact on
and
that
they can
learning.
be relevant.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Yeah, that's that's kind of like that critical like pedagogical like structure that Freire had talked about in Pedagogy of the Oppressed, where like we're going to use and bell hooks in Teaching to Transgress, where we're going to be kind of like using the materials and the cultural and historical knowledge of the community that we're in as a foundation for learning. So that's cool.
It's also great that, and probably great for you too, because we tend to take for granted what we know well, and students the same way, so like when I it just makes me think quickly of cognitive, where I do an exercise where we talk about music cognition, and the musicians in the class get to kind of show off their music knowledge, but they're so like, wait, this, to point out to them that like, you actually understand this better than I do.
Right.
So please share your knowledge. But because they're so comfortable in their own knowledge, there's less value placed on it. And so to be able to model that you've got this other knowledge that can be used in this other setting is really, I think that's really valuable.
I had a mentor when I was at NYU studying for my master's in applied psychology. And I'll never forget, she said to me, I was working on my thesis, and it was just very involved, as you know. And I was feeling a little bit stuck. And she said to me, you know more than you think you know. And just that simple saying is something that I've really carried with me, but also tried to share with other people. You know more than you think you know, and you don't always realize how relevant your experiences are to, that crossover.
Exactly. And I think especially for our students at the community college who are afraid of this setting, how crucial it is for those students to recognize the values of their own experiences and their own knowledge, because back to, you were making reference to the gatekeeping, right? The ways in which we have gatekeeped around academia can be really damaging. And part of the reason why I think higher ed is under attack is because it's seen as this sort of esoteric, well, don't get me started.
Oh, no, please.
Well,
Light it up.
I'm going to segue instead. That's what I'm going to do. Keep my blood pressure. Yeah, I'm going to keep my blood pressure down.
Jazz.
So I love the idea of the walking discussion in the East 40. What's another assignment that you really enjoy doing with your students in any of your classes?
So there's one that I really enjoy and they really enjoy. I'm just still trying to figure out a way to land it. And I teach it in Intro to Psychology, so I haven't taught that in person in a while. So I've been having some time to think about it. But it's Monopoly with adapted rules. And so it is basically the game redesigned to help people understand power and privilege and how that relates to to land ownership and wealth.
Yeah.
And so we have this Monopoly board game, and, we've got, instead of having individual students take on these different sort of directions, I do it in groups because it seems like if they have a partner, they can do it a little bit better. Mm-hmm. But they get a list of rules, and some just play by the basic Monopoly rules. But then other ones, like you don't collect any money when you pass go, or you can only buy these types of properties, or if you land on this property, you have to pay triple rent. So They have all of these different types of rules, and it's been designed to. And I didn't design it, but I've adapted it from somebody else's idea. But the whole premise is to understand that even when the playing field gets equalized, because in the middle of the game, everybody just plays by the same rules. So they have to follow these adapted rules for the first half, and then the second half, everybody plays by the same rules. Even when the playing field gets equalized, there's still disparities, right? Based on like how things started out, right?
Gosh,
so
this is amazing.
It's fit into like so many great discussions, and I just feel like it has so much value, but it's really hard because you have to spend a lot of time preparing students for it, because Monopoly is a complicated game.
It is.
Most of our students have not played Monopoly. I asked them and they're like, I've never played Monopoly before. So you almost have to spend an entire class explaining Monopoly to them. And, if I have a big class, I can't be the banker for every group. So it's been a little bit tedious figuring out how to implement it. But I can't let that assignment go. I just really love it.
So I want to hear more about this, but I just want to throw this out Erin Riley, who teaches social work, sociology, anthropology, I walked by her class and they were all playing Monopoly.
No way.
And she was using it as a way to talk about the effects of capitalism, or like so they can learn what capitalism is. So I don't know. I see like this really cool kind of like team teaching thing going on, but that also sounds like work. So never mind. So where did this come from? Because this is fascinating as hell.
I know. I actually have to Google it because I found the idea like probably close to 10 years ago, and I just adapted it over time with my own rules ever since.
Wow.
And this was well before ChatGPT, so I probably found it on a website somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, if you find it, can you share that with us? And then Jeff, you put on the Citey site?
Yeah.
You're so cool. Thanks.
I love the idea of an intro psych class that has that arc of something, because you are saying it takes a lot of time and a lot of setup and a lot of, curricular development on your part. But because that can apply to so many things in the psychology class. I remember just briefly when I was teaching an honors class, an honors intro to psychology class. And for a few years, the main text that we used was a short story, because I had read this short story and I was like, oh my gosh, social psychology, developmental psychology, again, everything is psychology to me. So, but we read that story and then continued to go back and revisit the story as we looked at the different. So it seems like it's such a great way to go deep in a survey class, right?
And maybe even that's something like you're making me think now that you're saying that maybe that's even something that we could do at the beginning of the semester as an icebreaker, and then kind of use that as an anchor as we talk for the rest of the semester about these different issues that link back to the experience of the Monopoly game. There you go. You solved my problem. Perfect. First week icebreaker, playing Monopoly.
This is the beauty of chatting when, we're normally just alone in our classrooms by ourselves, and it's so good to chat with other people.
I am overwhelmed by what's going on right now. This is awesome.
So if you hear students walking around complaining about playing this archaic game in the first week of the
complaining
fall
my ass,
semester.
No, this is awesome. And I haven't been able to piece it together in my mind yet, but have the two of you heard of a book? I was just introduced to it by a friend of mine called Dear Data.
No,
I feel like I should have.
I feel like someone brought it. Maybe it was you.
No,
like
it
I
wasn't me
heard
because
that
I
recently.
just learned about it.
Okay.
And as soon as I learned about it, I was thinking of like sending a text to you and Jeff, because it's like, this is so cool. But it's where you create essentially a key of like these like little graphic markers that represents like something that you want to study. This friend of mine, he's a philosopher over at Lafayette, and he's teaching a class called The Meaning of Life. Ooh. And the students get to decide like, okay, so what is the thing that you find meaningful or maybe not meaningful in your life? Like, what is that thing? And I want you to track that over a week. And then how does that thing manifest itself throughout that week? And then you need to come up with these like little visual markers for it. And then what they essentially do is they create these gorgeous graphic images where when you look at it, it's just like, well, wow, this is like art. Uh-huh. But then when you look at the key that they've created, you can see how that art actually like means something else. So one student, forget exactly what they're trying to track, but the main part on the key was a duck. And then if they, on this particular day, if they're feeling kind of sad, the duck would have its head underneath its wing. Wow. If they were feeling maybe a little hungover or something, the duck would be having sunglasses on or something like that. But like you look at it and you see like all these ducks in a row, but they are all kind of different. But like when you looked at the data key, you could see how that represents kind of this meaningful experience over the course of a week.
So you asked us the question of what is research? That's research.
Right.
That is 100%
research,
mm-hmm. right? And how experiential and phenomenological that is, and I think that's much more, I think there is more recognition. I haven't been to the APA, the American Psychological Association conference in years now, but I feel like even the last time I went 10 years ago, there was a lot more of that idea of experiential, qualitative. Yeah. That sounds really, that would be fun for health psychology.
That'd be awesome. And also a way to just help sort of with the issue that we're dealing with AI, you know, and some of the academic dishonesty.
Oh my gosh.
Problems that we're facing, you know, having someone graphically represent an experience that, and then talk about it, right? Like record a video and talk about their ducks in a row.
I think I have just rewritten the end of my research methods class this semester. I think I'm just now going to adapt what you just described as their final project.
Mm-hmm. And our listeners are hearing us kind of like figure out in real time. And Jeff is putting down the timestamp for my S-bomb. But anywho, but no, I was just kind of thinking about that with this Monopoly project that you're doing with the students. So like in what way are they tracking what they are experiencing while playing this game? And then is it something that they can be tracking over time? And then like I'm all about public facing work being generated in class. And so I'm just thinking about myself here. So I'm going to have a selfish moment here. I'm going to be totally, I think it's solipsistic. Is that the word? That'd be cool to just like run this kind of series of games over the course of a semester, have them create those representations, and then their final project is that you're going to have a gallery showing.
Yeah.
You just post these things on the wall in a public space on campus, and then students can go and kind of observe them with the key. And
well, and Megan already does that. She has a research symposium basically for students in her research methods class to present. How fun would it be to have these really vivid graphical, oh my gosh, I'm so excited now.
And we have the academic conference, you know, that students can submit individually. They could submit as a class, you know, so it could even be like a class-wide project. But I think that what you're talking about is really important, and us as educators sort of making the shift to these out of the box types of assignments, because I think that something that I've been sort of wrestling with over the past 5 to 10 years is just sort of seeing how, my initial experience with education is that I'm a first generation college student. My parents did like trade schools, but they didn't graduate with associates or bachelor's degrees or anything. So for me, college really was framed as this opportunity, right? Like you go to college and then you just have all of these different options of things that you can do with your life. And my parents said, if you don't go to college, which really wasn't an option anyway, but if you don't go to college or you drop out of college, you're not going to have as many options. So it was this, this golden opportunity, which I'm still paying for, by the way, but hopefully will be done soon. Anyway, I'm starting to get the sense, and this is not all students by any means, but I'm starting to get the sense that some students, and really there's this like changing social conception of education as an obstacle rather than an opportunity. And, I don't know if that's just because it's more accessible now than it was in the past. So that novelty has sort of worn off. And I think accessibility is critical. I love that it's accessible. But I'm starting to see some of that novelty wear off where, you're hearing students say things like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I have to do this work, or, I don't want to have to read that, or this project, and I think that it's a struggle, but a necessary one, to find a balance between how we're assessing their work, what type of instruments we're using, and how that's relevant to real life, and also making them feel like this is an opportunity for me to learn. This isn't just some busy work, that my instructor is giving me. And I think that is something that I really love about my job, is the challenge and the creativity of doing things like that. And it's almost like the sky's the limit, right? Like Kelly, what you were just talking about. I mean, you can almost go in any direction with it, which I think is really interesting.
That's the joy of learning.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. And the idea that college isn't special anymore. That's such a great point, right? It's not seen as this, this lofty goal in the way that it is. And again, for very, very good, valuable reasons of accessibility. But how do we kind of remind people that it is still really a special opportunity for those who do engage in it? And it does kind of lead me to the question of, so if you were to change something about our current, higher ed system, what would you change if you could? Where do you get started?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, I don't have a ton of criticisms of the higher ed system. I would say that we definitely need to do a bit of a better job bridging that gap between high school or whatever came before college, But I also think that maybe we don't have as good of an understanding of how students are arriving to us as we should, and if there was some data-based way to understand that a little bit better, I think that would be really, that would be really useful. The other concern is, education is really moving to a more virtual platform. Yeah. And so how are we connecting with students in a way and assigning work in a way that is still relevant to real life and meaningful to them, and again, like I look forward to those challenges, but they're not easy. So what would I like to see change about higher ed? I would say of my colleagues, maybe just a little bit more open-mindedness of the dynamic nature of education, and being a little bit more willing maybe to be flexible about just trying new things and not always doing the sort of standard, all right, you're going to have your midterm and you're going to have your final, cram for it, read page to page, every single, page in this chapter. And because I think that, students have a lot of demands. I mean, most of our students are taking more than one course, and so if we're just overloading them with work constantly just for assessment purposes, aka busy work, how is that helping them? How is that helping them to learn and be their best selves in any of their classes, or even outside of class, right? In the multiple roles that they're likely juggling. Right. Like the educational experience needs to be supportive of like life as well, right? And like,
And something you said there really struck me, which is that we're teaching them to learn, and that should almost be the priority. I mean, obviously, we're also teaching them so that they can learn a skill and develop a career or a trade or whatever it is. But teaching, and it ties back in with what you were saying about K through 12, right? How much are we teaching people? And again, how much are we teaching people to look at learning as a special thing,
right?
That they can engage in, that is going to help them in every single situation they're going to be in, because as human beings, that's what we do. We learn. Like, we have to. We encounter a new situation, we have to figure out what to do in that new situation. It's just that it's sort of just that simple, right?
Yeah. And maybe breaking away from this like very historic but outdated rote memorization approach to learning, right? Like, memorize these definitions, that was like my childhood, right, of learning. And even if you think about it now, that's kind of the track that it's in when we talk about standardized testing and whatnot. And as someone who has worked in psychological testing, I definitely have an appreciation for it. But yeah, when we kind of pack education and learning into a box, we're very limited then in what we're teaching, unfortunately. So I don't have any like perfect plan or answers for how to do that, but that's what I'd like to explore moving forward, right? Is how can we like reinvigorate that appreciation for learning?
Yeah. And it comes back to this idea of, I'm going to say the dreaded acronym DEI, but what that actually means is what you were saying, Megan, about accessibility and the ability to be in a learning situation where you have all the resources that you need to be able to succeed. And, what you're saying about all of these really fun, unusual ways of learning, like playing Monopoly or walking through the forest, right? To use those as the jumping off points for our peers, our fellow faculty members, to think about how they can do it differently to a purpose, right? To meet the students that we get now where they are, as opposed to this assumption that they've learned all the multiplication or what, what I mean? Like, whether that they are sort of, that the whole, are they prepped for college? Well, what do we even mean by prepped for college? And I don't mean to discount the fact that, well, yeah, they do need to have basic writing skills and basic, right? But there's got to be some way in which we're thinking about how do we change our pedagogy to meet our students in a place where we can, zhuzh up that feeling of valuing education.
And I think it's easy to get sort of locked into a pattern, right? Life is about patterns. It's about repeated behaviors. And, I don't think it's uncommon at all to teach the way that you were taught, right? And to sort of fall back on that. But I think also recognizing that, the world is changing and, the demands that are present in the world for when our students graduate are different than when we graduated and our parents graduated and whatnot. And so, yeah, I just think that flexibility is going to make such a huge difference.
Yeah.
And help people enjoy their job more. I think, for me, like I said, I wasn't born a teacher, but I was definitely born like a maker and a creator. I come from a family where people are very interested in creating things and artistic. And so like, I feel like that's where I can really meet that need in this job, is having that aspect of creativity, whether that's like, course shell design or, just designing my own curriculum.
Ooh, yeah, that's great. Oh my gosh. Well, I feel like I missed the last time check, but I think we might be getting to the end of this time, but this has been so great. So I'm sadly moving to our last question, which is the guilty pleasure that you'd like to share with us.
This was a tough one. I would say, though, that it is probably fantasizing about the next pet that I'm going to buy.
Love it.
I grew up in a home where we always had pets, but like we had a limited number at any given time. And my dream was always to have like 4 pets, 4 dogs specifically.
Oh, wow.
And so I feel like in my marriage, I'm like able to get a little bit closer to that, even if it's just like 3. So I keep inching my way closer to like, all right, I think it's time to get another dog now. So that's my guilty pleasure, is like planning about how I'm going to add a new pet to the family.
Well, I have had the pleasure of seeing the pictures of your newest addition to your family, Grub. Oh my goodness, this dog is so cute.
He's a
So
French
cute.
bulldog, and I've always wanted a French bulldog for as long as I can remember. I grew up with labs, and then I had like American bullies, pit bulls for my adult life, and I've just always wanted a Frenchie so much, and I decided for my 40th birthday that I was going to buy one for myself, so I did. And he's certainly everything I expected he would be and more.
He's like a little potato.
He is. He truly is. We call him the loaded potato. Yeah.
I want to smush him.
Mm-hmm. He's very smushable. Yeah.
Oh man.
That's great. That's great.
Well, Megan, thank you so much for spending part of your afternoon with us.
Thanks for having me. This was great.
This was really great.
Yeah,
Lots of fun.
Especially, so an overwhelming majority of the guests that we have on this podcast are colleagues of ours from Northampton Community College. And like for me personally, I think that's cool because I get to learn so much more about you that like I really don't get to kind of glean from our conversations in the hallway. So just thank you so much for kind of like sharing your afternoon and sharing yourself with us here today. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So glad to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And a million great ideas.
Yes, thank you for helping me brainstorm them.
Yeah. Pedagogy a go go. Pedagogy go go go.
So Gina, I have no idea what to do with my mind after that episode.
That was one of our more freewheeling throw away the questions episodes, I would say, because it was just so fun to dig into all the new ideas that Megan is so passionate about. Like, how do I want to put it? Maybe you can help me out here, because it's not so much that she's coming up with these ideas just out of boredom but that they're so connected to what she cares about, like the why.
Yes.
She's always driven by the why. So,
well, and I don't know. So, like, damn it, and this happens every time where it's like our guest leaves, and then like I come up with like this new question that I would actually like answered immediately, please. But so she was talking earlier about how like neither of her parents went to college, but in fact they went to trade schools, and I don't know, like when I think about folks who come from the trades, like the first thing that comes to my mind is like they are problem solvers, because no two projects are ever the same, and you need to just think creatively to find new ways to adapt to the situation that you're in. Now, I'm just curious, like how much of growing up in that environment has influenced Megan's approach to teaching, because it really feels like she does that with her students.
Yeah.
But yeah, this episode, like, holy Christmas. Like, I know that our listeners can't see this, but like I keep notes as we go through, and like this one is like my paper's just filled because like I've got all these like, okay, well, here's a thing that I need to look up. Here's a thing that I need to read. Here's something that I need to think about more. Like it was just like, that was jam-packed.
Yeah. Well, and, I love the connection you've made with her parents, being problem solvers, right? Being people who are doing things that presumably, are physical jobs, meaning you're working with your hands, you're creating things in the world. And she also mentioned being sparked by an interest in criminal justice, which also feels like that is a problem that I am interested in solving. I'm interested in understanding, and I'm frustrated that there are no solutions, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I think that was a piece of it for her too, is like, wait, they call it rehabilitation, but the recidivism rate shows that is definitely not the case, right? So I think that is a really good. We could have pitched her the term problem solver as her word to describe herself, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, because I'm glad that you brought up that part about like because I think that she said that she wanted to be like a I don't know if it was like a trooper or
State trooper,
a state
I
trooper.
think.
So my brother he's a police officer over on the western side of the state, and like when he and I have those rare moments where we can like sit down and talk about stuff, just ask him about like how the job's going.
Yeah.
Like he calls his job lawin. So LAWIN
I like it.
apostrophe. Yeah, just lawin. But what's interesting about the way that he talks about that job is like what's important to him is to have like a level of empathy. So because like that's something that's valuable, I believe, well, amongst other things, like when he's in the moment. But like I got to go and call him up afterwards because there isn't much of the like, well, what happens afterwards? So like he's kind of like on that front line, but then like what happens to these individuals after they've experienced him?
Experience the law and
The
the
law.
good law, and if he's actually trying to use empathy in his work. I mean, that is
I'm proud of what
that's
he's doing. But anyways, go ahead.
great. No, that's really
Well, it's weird because also like growing up, like myself and I don't think that this is any surprise to anybody. Like me and like any form of authority did not go well together. And it's like you're going to be a cop, really? Okay.
When I was in undergrad, my first go around, I took a philosophy class, and the TA for that class used to refer to himself as a former peace officer. So that was the first time I had ever heard.
Oh, I love that.
Right? That was the first time I'd ever heard that term used for a law enforcement officer. And I've since heard it, but and he said, I think there was a similarity between that guy, whose name I don't remember, and Megan, in that he really started to question the why of what he was doing when he was out on patrol, when he was acting as a law enforcement officer. So he was now a philosophy graduate student. So I mean,
That's so cool.
yeah, it's a lot of our students in psychology are also really interested in criminal justice and forensic psychology. I think because it is a major societal problem. And maybe, again, like we were talking with Megan, that everyone's touched by health. Everyone's touched by the law, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I've certainly had relatives who were incarcerated. I know we had a previous guest who worked in the prison system, right? So that is a problem that is not solved or easily solvable.
Yeah, and I don't know. Like you're talking about this now, and I by the way, I feel like we're kind of venturing away from kind of like our celebration of this, amazing episode with Megan. But like, I'll just say that I don't feel that we really kind of talk about that part of our of the United States kind of like culture enough, And I'm just wondering, like, is the reason why is because we're just so often distracted by like these other things.
I think that's fair to say. I think
Sucks,
also
but,
because it totally sucks. It's also so intractable. And then, what Megan is doing with her Monopoly game, right? Pointing out that people do not start out with the same rules, right? They don't start out and that this is what she's illustrating for her students. And that feels very related to our criminal justice system and the huge disparities in who gets policed, who gets incarcerated. So, I mean, it kind of comes back to what you just said, which is this conversation was so fantastic because there's so many follow-up threads to follow after talking to Megan. And I can't wait to pigeonhole her again in the CTLT and compare notes on our assignments now that we've come up with ways to tweak them.
Yeah, and I don't know. I'm also thinking that we need to kind of bring Dustin Briggs, Dustin Briggs, back into this conversation as well because like he does a lot of gamifying of things and like so as Megan was talking about this Monopoly game, it's like, oh, wow, okay, you're talking about redlining here. Now you're also talking about generational wealth.
Yep.
And these are like very kind of like, I think, abstract ideas for students in 2026.
Yep.
Even though these things of like generational wealth, well, we're still in it.
Yep.
And redlining, like it being as explicit as it had been, wasn't all that long ago.
Right.
But I'm thinking like what that monopoly activity would look like in kind of almost in a reverse order, where students read materials on this stuff, and then it's like, okay, so you just learned about like what's going on here. Now, how would that shape the rules for this game? So where the students then make up the rules for how to play the game.
That's a
so then
really
they're
cool
kind of-
twist.
They're like putting their knowledge into action,
Yeah.
and then they can play it through.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, teaching is so fun.
It is. It is.
It's so fun to come up with assignments.
Yeah, and I don't know if like you had this same experience, but as soon as I go home, so then my wife is like, "So, how'd the recording go?" It's like, "Oh my goodness gracious!" And then we start talking about stuff, and then next thing we know, like we're late for dinner. But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
It is. It is.
So, Gina, it was great having fun with you
Yes.
again, and you too, Jeff, the silent one over there.
Jesk.
Jesk.
Jersk.
Always silently judging us. But anywho, so so one thing that I did want to share with our listeners is that I am going to be on sabbatical next year. So we are going to try to squeeze in maybe one more episode before I change my outgoing message. So we may have one more episode for season 6, and it's going to be kind of like a special episode if we can pull it off. But then we're going to go radio silent for a year, which I think is a good thing because it'll give our listeners a chance to kind of like re-listen to all the episodes and really kind of like, oh, Jeff, stop it. And for those of you who can't see what I see, he's making pouty faces and little tears, and now he's making me sad.
Well, we're going to be rooting for you, Kelly, but we're going to miss you.
I thank you, but I am so excited. So
you should be excited.
I'm finally going to get to, put in the time and energy to finish this dissertation that I've been working on for a while. So when I come back, I'll be sure to share that with everybody.
Excellent. Maybe you'll be our first guest.
Oh, mercy. Okay. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. But hopefully we can get this special episode in before I go on sabbatical. But if not, to the two of you and also to all of our fabulous listeners, love you. Bye. Thank you for listening to Pedagogy A Go-Go, recorded in the Center for Teaching, Learning, and Technology at Northampton Community College in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Our producer in all things technology is Jeff Armstrong. If you've got any questions, please send them to pedagogyagogo@gmail.com, and be sure to follow us on social media at pedagogyagogo and click into our bio for copies of podcast transcripts, guest assignments, and other useful tidbits. Until next time, this is Gina and Kelly saying we hope your day is filled with wonderful learning experiences.